own voice, so we're working with minorities in Pakistan by giving a voice to those who continue to be unheard. Thank you.
I would like to welcome everybody on behalf of the Human Rights Defense once again. My name is Baloch. I am overlooking the promotion event team at the Human Rights Defense. And today I will try my best to introduce our speakers. First of all, thanks again, Anna. I think she is one of the colleagues that can give you a little bit of an insight into our work in the Human Rights Defense. As Tom mentioned, we're quite a young team, and we have a delegation here in Geneva as well. And I think you can meet us after this press conference and get to know each other. So I think we should start with the first item on the agenda, the Onward movie, which is a movie presented to all of us on the human rights situation in China regarding the overpopulation there. Thank you very much.
वो मुश्किल वो एफर्ट काटी गई। इस दरमियान में जब डीपीओ का किरदार रहा, यहाँ बैठे हुए मेरे जो अकील से ताल्लुक रखते हैं एमएनए मेरे भाई, हर एमएनए ने कोशिश करी डीपीओ से बात करने की, लेकिन वो डीपीओ किसी का फोन उठाना गवारा नहीं कर रहा था। ये कुछ फोटोज हैं जो वहां खींचे गए थे। उस लड़की को जब भर्ती की अदालत में पेश किया गया तो उसने वाज़ेह स्टेटमेंट दी कि मैं अपने माँ बाप के साथ जाना चाहती हूँ, लेकिन बुरी तौर तरीके इंतजामिया के, क्योंकि उस एमएलए साहब का प्रेशर था।
As probably most of you know, that was not announced, that was not the other situation in China, but in Pakistan maybe. I will now therefore change the order of the speakers, so we're in line with the content. Just so I would like to introduce Mr. Luhana, the General Secretary of the World Sindhi Congress.
First and foremost, really grateful to the BHRC and to Seekers and the team of BHRC. Really helping us to say with the voice of suffering and pain to all of you and to you, to the entire world. Today's topic is organized situation in China and Pakistan. So, because it's 5 minutes, I have to be really very precise. So, the sequence of my statement would be just to provide you what is Sindh, what is Pakistan, what is happening in that part of the world, Sindhis, and most importantly, why it matters to the world. Now, I can sometimes go back and see in Google, Sindh is one of the oldest countries in the world. Sindh is one of the oldest countries in the world, and we belong to the Indus civilization, which is one of the most ancient civilizations of the world. For thousands of years, fast forwarding to 1843, when Sindh was an independent country, was captured by the British Empire. Fast forwarding to 1947, when subcontinent, without consulting and understanding, even that point in time, the right to self-determination wasn't enshrined in the Charter. Without considering the wishes of the nations, the subcontinent was divided, and unfortunately, Sindh came to Pakistan, and that was the start of a very darkest era. Coming back to current Sindh, fast forwarding 75 years, Sindh, according to the official figures, provides 70% of the resources of the wealth of the revenue of Pakistan, 70%. 72% of gas of Pakistan, 64% of oil of Pakistan, 6th largest coal deposits of the world, worth $23 trillion. And to that country, that produces 70%. The situation is, Emma was talking about the girls' education. Officially, the Sindh government saying that there are 7 million children. That is almost the population of many European countries. 7 million children in Sindh under the age of 10, they are out of education. The real figures that we gathered, the female education is not there are 36%, 37% of. There are more than 2/3, more than 67% of girls, they are out of education. There are 80% of the schools, they don't have water or sanitation facilities. According to the Supreme Court, the drinking water that the people of Sindh use, 80% of people, that not suitable for animal consumption. Not suitable for animal consumption, and creating literally a pandemic of disease, of hepatitis. And on the other hand, they are taking over millions of acres of land. They are settling people from outside. So Sindh could be converted into minority cities, could be converted into minority on their own motherland. And currently 60% of the youth who have passed through universities, they are out of employment. The level of malnutrition, according to the UN, 70% of people in Sindh suffer from malnutrition. On average, 10 children die of malnutrition every day in Sindh, and that is the Sindh. And then if you raise the voice, you are abducted. You are gone, you are missing. There are hundreds of Sindhi youth who are missing, and for many years. At the time of partition, Sindhi Hindus made 29% of population of Sindh. And today, they are only 6%. But the way the atrocities are being committed, they are legal. And you were talking about in this documentary, heart-wrenching, about the conversion of girl. Yesterday, a 9-year-old girl, she has been abducted and forced to convert. Can you believe that? And coming back to the Pakistan, if you are in any understanding that is a country run by the democratic system, no. From day one, Pakistan has been run by the military. There is no institution. There is no parliament. There is no judiciary. There is no even press. They all are controlled very heavily by the army. Army is the largest corporate company of Pakistan. They run. If tomorrow they want to remove one, they bring the governments, they remove the governments, and that is what is happening. And I tell you one thing, that why it matters to you, because Pakistan has the 6th largest army in the world. Pakistan has got the largest per capita soldiers in the world. Pakistan has got an army of 2 to 3 million religious these terrorists and extremists, 2 to 3 million. There is no other comparable army in the world, and they can create havoc on the world. Just go back and see that the demonstrations and the protests, how vicious against France by the Pakistan. In these protests, number of people were killed, even from the police, and these people were released. They don't have only Tehrik Pakistan, they have scores of religious extremist groups. And they are, now the world knows, they are the proxies of the Pakistani army. And they don't only create this situation against the nations that operate in Pakistan, like Sindhis and Balochs and Pashtuns. They create the instability. Say, for example, Afghanistan, who created Taliban? You need to know. This is the Pakistan who did that. Now, after 20 years of US being there, these Taliban came back. So they were celebrating. Even the Pakistan's Prime Minister was very happy that they were victorious. They were capable to bring that. So it is this religious fundamentalism is spreading, and this is reaching to your doors. Just go back. And so I tell you one thing, it is your time. Like during the time of Second World War, there was Holocaust and they didn't have the voice. We the Sindhi people, and the Baloch people who don't have the voice. You become our voice, it is your responsibility, it is the responsibility of the international community, it is the responsibility of any human being who believe in human dignity and human rights, that they should raise our voice and to tell the world what atrocities and why it matters to you. Thank you very much.
Once again, I'm forced to improvise because Mr. Lakhu, who will join us here today online, the president of the World Oighur Congress, has to attend another meeting. So I would like to welcome him via live stream. We will later on show you the on the Oighur genocide as well. Thank you for your patience.
Yes, please. Yes, thank you. Well, thank you very much again. And as has become a clear by law, current situation will also be people has never been more urgent. The Uyghur suffered incredible on the action of the Chinese government has put the existence of Uyghur people on the street. In the last 5 years alone, Chinese government has subjected Uyghur people to mass arbitrary detention, military of Uyghur, Kazakh, and other people in concentration camps, where they are subject to several abuse. Hands with China. Destruction, physical repression of Uyghur identity on global concept of most gravities and other signs of religious, cultural, historical importance to Uyghur people. Bans Uyghur, use Uyghur language in many schools and public space. Separating Uyghur children from their family, may estimate around 1 million Uyghur children separated from family, to indoctrinate them to be loyal to the Chinese Communist Party and forsake their Uyghur identity. Harassment, punishment to the diaspora and anyone who dares speak out. Taken together, Chinese Communist Party trying to destroy and erase Uyghur people. We are expressing and genocide, and this finally being recognized by international community as a response to this crisis. 9 national parliaments to the genocide. Following past resolution, US, UK, Canada, Netherland, Luhana, Baloch, Czech Republic, France, Ireland, as well as officially recognized by the US government. In December 2021, the Independent Uyghur Tribunal confirmed this allegation in its final judgment, highlighting the legal obligation that signatories of UN Genocide Convention must prevent Uyghur genocide from happening. The testimonies at the Uyghur Tribunal have shown that behind each million of Uyghur people affected by CCP genocide policy and Uyghurs, a family and friends who lost one. I personally lost both of my parents under mistakes of circumstance in the past year due to the CCP policy. My mother died in the concentration camp because of the year. They have sentenced my younger brother to life imprisonment, my older brother to life sentence, and of course my remaining family member to death penalty. Nearly everyone has family stories and the most on the pain. What's happening is spreading other people in China too. Repressive techniques tested Uyghurs are not being used to quench distance to Hong Kong and several technology being exported abroad, Chinese government is undermining human rights in the UN and certain human rights and freedom of the world. In 1948, the international community formally recognized and codified the concept of human rights in the UN Declaration of Human Rights, promising to work together to avoid violent discrimination and genocide. In August 2018, UN Committee on Elimination of Racial Discrimination forward and explored on the detention of at least 1 million people in detention camp and the widespread white violation. Self-review special review marks total point in the recognition of the rights by the international community. In June 2020, 50 UN experts and special reporters issued jointly communication that increasing concern of human rights violation in Turkestan. In November 24, 2021, SIRT sent a follow-up letter to Chinese reports, comment, and action of several issues. Last year, World Congress jointly made 200 NGOs the open letter urging the UN High Commissioner for Human Rights for publish a report on the issue. The High Commissioner has been requested access to the region since 2018 without access. In September 2021, Madam Vice confirmed that her office was finalizing the assessment of the available information on allegation of the serious human rights violation in Turkestan is a view to making public. In December, the spokesperson of the Office of the High Commissioner of Human Rights said the report would be released in a matter of weeks. However, during the report of the Council last year, High Commissioner has announced that office has reached an agreement with the Chinese government for visiting in the May. It is extremely concerning that she has not been transparent of this process and the condition of the visit. The visit should also not be an excuse not to publish the report. It undermines people of her office to believe China will allow the unfettered, the meaningful access that will allow the human rights defender, victim, and their family to speak High Commissioner openly and satisfied. This context, High Commissioner should engage meaningful group of organization around that condition of the Yes, I hear you.
Are you finished? I'm sorry, the connection on our side is a little bit bad.
Yes, I'm finished.
Thank you so much, then. Thank you for coming. Thank you. So in order not to confuse the people present in this hall and our viewers any further, I would like to stick to the Chinese topic of the day, and I would like to give the floor to Mr. Lakhu, Sindhi, who actually traveled here today, which we're very grateful for. For those who don't know him, he's the director in charge of the BHRC magazine. The floor is yours.
Thank you so much. China is a totalitarian state where people exist only as functions of the ruling elite. Basic rights are blatantly denied, and liberty is severely restricted as a mere concession of the government for the sake of the government itself. In China, the government is in fact not instituted for serving the common good, but it is merely the other name of the Chinese Communist Party, or CCP, and democratically in power since October 1st, 1949, and responsible for millions and millions of deaths, possibly killer number one in all human history. The only historical rival of the CCP is the staggering slaughter of human beings in its fellow communist Soviet Union. But while the USSR is gone, communist China is still there and growing. in the world prominence. Surviving the historical failure and tragic collapse of communism, quite able to revitalize its own liberticide system and animated by pungent content for ethnic minorities, women and children, I now I could go back. All that is relevant is contained in the sentences that I just pronounced. All that is worth saying on China is already there. But if shortness is a virtue in public speaking, sometimes evident proofs deserve to be furtherly sounded out, to be fully appreciated in all their profoundness, or as in our case today, in all their horrors. I go directly to the negation of basic human rights in China. Human rights are not what international meetings, political majorities, and government commissions decide, for the simple reason that what international meetings, political majorities, and government commissions decide come and go are bestowed on people today just to be torn down tomorrow. These are no rights. These are grants. To be rights, they should be undeniable, unalienable, untouchable. They must be inherent to the human being. They must proceed from the human nature. So for the very reason of being a human being distinguishable from any other living being or non-living object, a human being is entitled to certain intangible and sacrosanct and even taboo rights that no fellow human being, no group, no organization, no political or economic force, no state and no church can curtail and challenge, repudiate or veto. Chief and first among the rights that the human being is entitled to by his or her very nature is religious freedom, for the simple reason that all human beings have the right to know truth, and the nature of the truth focused upon by religions, faiths, creeds, and beliefs is supreme. In recognizing the existence of God, the highest being, or spiritual entity, or in denying it, resides the ultimate and total sense of one's life. For this reason, religious freedom is the first liberty of man, and the right to its exercise is the fundamental human right from which all subsequent rights, expressions, association, education, ownership, etc. derive. But if it is so foundational for all human activity, since it is centered on the most seminal question of all, religious liberty has serious consequences. Believing or not believing in God, following or not following a spiritual way, has a tremendous impact on human behavior. It essentially influences the way in which people live, associate with others, animate society, do education, politics, economics, in one word, all human activity. In fact, religious liberty is not only the freedom to worship, but also to live according to one's belief. The gentle organizer of this important press conference today, the Club Suisse de la Paix and the Global Human Rights Defense, invited me to speak here today in my capacity of director in charge of BHRC, an online magazine on religious liberty and human rights all over the world, whose core business remains anyway China. In China today, there is what we call the war on the very idea of God. Communist China has always judged religion as unnatural and thus sooner or later doomed to extinction. While awaiting for this fate, the CCP has contributed to reaching the extinction of religion with varying degrees of harshness, depending on times, leaders, national and international contexts. The new era of Xi Jinping favors a rapid acceleration with a direct assault on faiths, both those banned or somewhat tolerated and those approved and controlled by the state. This means only one thing. The CCP considers God its very enemy. Why? Because God is a direct rival of the CCP. Believers are increasingly compelled to remove and destroy religious images, to substitute them with portraits, Mao Zedong and Xi Jinping himself. They are Jesus' God. The communist regime in Albania, one of the worst of all history, declared itself the first atheistic state of the world in 1967 and waged explicitly war on the very idea of God in its 1976 constitution. The CCP is doing it again today, in spite of the fact that the Chinese constitution grants, nominally, religious freedom. God must become extinct. In the meantime, the Chinese government is making believers become extinct. Now, in China, not all religious persecution is the same. There are nuances. In fact, we go from the awful situation for faith, creeds, and beliefs to appalling condition for believers. The best description of the religious landscape in today's China remains the three markets model suggested by Chinese sociologist Feng Yang in 2006 that Peter Winter, the magazine I'm honored to be the director in charge of, adopted since the beginning. Feng Yang wittingly proposes to recognize a red market, a gray market, and a black market for faiths and organized religions in China under the CCP rule. Let me just briefly explain. The red market includes the only 5 religious organizations approved by the regime: the Buddhist, Taoist, and Muslim association controlled by the government, and the Protestant, Free Self, and Catholic Patriotic Church, whose leaders are appointed by the CCP. In this way, the party controls such large groups of believers from within. We then have the black market, which is the kingdom, so-called the Xiejiao. Xiejiao is an old Chinese expression meaning heretic, heterodox teachings. Nowadays, the CCP is reviving that expression, Xiejiao, to translate it improperly as evil cults. So the black market is the place where the CCP puts all the so-called Xiao cults, which are cults only by definition of the state. There is no scientific agreement on what a cult is. And in China, you are a cult of Xiao only if you belong to a list, which is a list made by the Chinese state of cults. So it's a revolving thing in this way. So the red market, the black market, in between we have the gray market of religions, which is the area where the state, the CCP, is not able to control directly religions, or is not able to crush them directly, so it considers them illegal, but it does not have the force right now to crush them. I have a longer text that is available for you if you want, with a lot of data, but I want just to point out that, and I'm going to include the staggering case of a large religious group in China, which is almost completely unknown abroad, and for this reason is constantly harassed by the CCP because no one is paying attention. It is called the Church of Almighty God. The 2021 annual report on victims of that group has just been released. You find a review on Peter Winter. I have some numbers here which I won't bother you with now, but it's staggering. The human toll that this group is paying. Another famous in China group is the Falun Gong. Falun Gong has been the victim of human harvesting, meaning they consider them enemy of the state. They put them to jail. They sentence them to death, and they take organs out of their bodies, sometimes when they're still alive, to feed the huge black market of human transplants. The China Tribunal in London, a popular court of law whose ruling arrived in March 2020, found the CCP guilty of crimes against humanity in this field. And the sentence is a 500-page report on this. We heard from Balochistan, my good friend, about Uyghurs, Xinjiang, that they call Turkestan, is becoming an open-air concentration camps. And the CCP calls us as fake news. But we have videos, we have pictures, there are testimonies. The organizer is passed through that. Many friends passed all through that. Let me just conclude that CCP is waging a religious total war against all religions. This happens because the CCP is a materialistic God that cannot stand any rhythm. Humiliation of people is a daily business of this lying God, and the saddest part of the story is that most of the world is content to go hand in hand with it, doing business as usual. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In order to finish our focus on human rights situation for now, I would like to start with what I promised you earlier on the situation of the Uyghur population.
In the northeast of China, close to Central Asia, is located the Xinjiang Uyghurs Autonomous Region. 25 ethnic communities live in this region, which spreads over 1.6 million square kilometers. Numerous ethnic groups are living in Xinjiang, and there are a dozen autonomous prefectures and counties. Minorities and majorities in this region, including the Uyghurs, which are Muslims. January Civic 51 is a former teacher of Chinese. In 2016, she was forced to teach Chinese in Uyghur camps. During 2 years, she witnessed physical injuries in her streets and screams from torture's room, so her young and boy disappeared. Today, she fled China to tell us the story of her people.